Hello, everybody, and welcome back, or welcome if you are new here, to my podcast, Reading and Weeping. My name is Julia, and I am your host, and in this podcast, we talk about all things books, all things reading, so I am so excited that you are joining me for today's episode, because it's going to be a good one. Now, I feel like in this podcast, you can kind of always tell by the sound of my voice maybe how I'm feeling. There are certain episodes, like the Heartstopper episode, for example, where I'm like overly giddy. There's some times where I'll be a little bit angry, a little bit heated about certain things. Today, you might hear some exhaustion in my voice, and the reason for that is I just tried Pilates for the first time today, and let me tell you, as somebody who does not normally work out and then jumps right into a really intense Pilates class, you're not going to feel super cute afterwards, okay? And that is not how I feel right now. So if I sound bored in any way, I promise you I am not. I'm very, very excited for today's episode. I'm just very, very sore. So please bear with me. So with all of that said, I wanted to keep this episode pretty chill today. I wanted to talk about something that I've actually been thinking about quite a lot, and that is celebrity book clubs, how big they get, how much influence they have, and so on. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. One of the biggest things that I have noticed ever since I got back on my reading kick, my reading journey, is the impact that celebrity book clubs have on the general public. These book clubs were not things that I paid attention to before I started reading. I had no idea how big they actually were. It's not like they make their way into everyday conversations. But when you are starting to read and you maybe don't know where to look, you'll go to celebrity book clubs first. And to me, the obvious allure of these book clubs is the idea that this person, this celebrity, is handpicking this book and saying, you should read this. It's really good. And I don't really know what it is that makes us as the general public trust these people's opinions, because it's not like they're authors. Sometimes they are. I don't know if any authors have book clubs, but the ones that I'm thinking of off the top of my head, they don't really have much credibility, I would say, when it comes to reading. And it's not like they need to be authors or they need to be writers or anything to give recommendations. I'm actually not quite sure what would qualify a person to give book recommendations. What qualifies me to give book recommendations? What do I have any business being here giving you guys book recommendations? Probably not. But I think what I'm trying to say is you wouldn't necessarily look at your favorite actor or your favorite singer and think to yourself, I wonder what their favorite books are. I want to know what they recommend to read, because you just don't think of them in that capacity. It's not like, you look at Steven Spielberg and think, I wonder what his favorite movies are, because that would be very interesting. And he's qualified. He's an Academy Award-winning director. He's probably the greatest director of all time. You want to know what kind of movies it is that he likes to watch. I just think that the only thing that really is the common thread between all of these celebrity book clubs is not that these people actually write. It's not that they actually do the skill where they, write novels and write screenplays or just write in general. I think the common thread between all of them is they're just confident in their book recommendations. They're putting it out there and saying, this book is really good and you're going to like it if you read it. So I think you should read it. This is my book club pick. That's bold to do, because a lot of the time reading is so personal. All of the time reading is so personal. It's such an intimate personal experience. You don't read with other people like you maybe watch a movie or watch a TV show with other people. You read by yourself. It's a very intimate connection that you have with a story. So to put it out there and say, this story really affected me and I really loved it, and you should read it too because I think it'll have the same effect, knowing full well that the person listening to you might not feel that way. And I think that's very brave in a way. So I applaud these celebrity book club people because sometimes their recommendations are really out there. And on top of all of that, they have an image to uphold. They have a brand to build. So to put your name out there, to stand behind something, it's like standing behind a product in advertising, like you're putting your name and your reputation kind of on the line sometimes for a story that you full well may think that people won't like, that people will not really respond to very well. It's risky in certain situations, but for those authors of those books, that risk often comes with a great reward. You have skyrocketing book sales, #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, or just on the New York Times bestseller list in general. That's a really big deal for a lot of authors, especially authors with a debut novel, all kinds of things like that. It's a really big deal because these celebrities have so much influence over their audience. So I think it's time that we talk about a few celebrity book clubs, a couple of the most notable ones, and how they've kind of branched off from a book club into something even bigger. So we cannot even start this celebrity book club conversation without talking about the OG celebrity book club, Oprah's book club. Before doing research for today's episode, I actually had no idea that Oprah's book club was still a thing. I thought it was just in the 90s and it just doesn't exist anymore, but it actually does. And Oprah just picked out her 100th book as of this year, as of 2023. But she actually started this book club back in 1996, which is crazy to think about. That's actually older than me. Her book club is older than me, which is a very weird idea. Anyway, she started out doing her book club actually on her talk show. She would have a segment where she would talk about her book of the month and discuss its themes, discuss its plot, and just basically encourage everybody to go out and buy it, go out and read it. From there, her book club kind of just continued on because it was so iconic and so many people loved it and so many people became members of it. It found a way to continue on even after her show ended. And actually in 2019, she had an Apple TV Plus show called Oprah's Book Club where she would do the same thing. She would pick a book, talk about the themes and the plot and all of that good stuff and recommend it to people. It only lasted for one season, but it just goes to show the longevity of that book club and of her brand. And she's still continuing to pick books today and post them on her website, all kinds of things like that. So that was the one that really started it all. It gave the framework for other celebrities to be able to start their own book clubs. And it showed how it can kind of transcend through many different mediums, not just on TV, also on streaming, also on the internet. It just kind of showed that you can recommend books really anywhere and throw your name behind it and make it a thing and have people subscribe to it and be members to it. It was just pure and simple, the original celebrity book club. Everybody trusted Oprah because she was in your living room every single day, so obviously you're going to trust the books that she reads, the products she recommends, all kinds of things like that. And it really inspired a lot of different offshoots of many celebrity book clubs. It was truly the start of it all. A few examples of celebrity book clubs are Our Shared Shelf by Emma Watson, Bellatrist by Emma Roberts, Read with Jenna by Jenna Bush Hager. Kaya Gerber apparently has a book club, but it's not really a book club. She just shares her book club pics on Instagram and does Instagram lives. Whatever, I've never heard of it. And then Shonda Rhimes has one. Sarah Jessica Parker has an unofficial book club where she just posts reads on her Instagram, and she has a Goodreads account that you can follow. Florence Welch of Florence and the Machine has a book club called Between Two Books, and a bunch of other people besides herself actually give their recommendations on her site, so that's kind of cool. But those are just a few examples of celebrity book clubs. They're very popular, and Oprah really started that trend. But there is one book club that has just as much prominence, just as much influence, if not, dare I say, more. And that would be the infamous Reese'S Book Club. If you are a reader, you know about Reese's Book Club, okay? Whether or not you read her recommendations, you know about this book club. It is extremely prominent. If you are an author who gets your book on Reese's Book Club list, you have won the lottery. You will have a #1 New York Times bestseller the week after it comes out. You will have it distributed in every store across the US. I mean, her book club is extremely powerful for a lot of reasons. But I'm going to go ahead and read on actually the homepage of reesesbookclub.com kind of their formula and their niche. Each month, Reese, our founder and book lover in chief, chooses a book with a woman at the center of the story. There's not a formula to the books we spotlight, and we like it that way. We make our choices thoughtfully and look for ways to deepen our connection to books, authors, and ourselves. From thrillers to romance to the perfect beach read, there's a book for every mood in this complete list of Reese's Book Club picks. Now, Miss Reese Witherspoon has been doing this since 2017. So that's like 6 or 7 years that she has been consistently, every single month, picking a book and putting it on her website as her monthly pick. That is so crazy to me that she just consistently reads all the time with how busy her schedule is, and she keeps up with this book club that probably started out as a silly little thing, but it's actually turned into so much more. And I'm going to talk about why Reese is so smart for doing what she's done with this book club and the success of this book club. I'm going to tell you why. Because she also has a production company that she founded called Hello Sunshine, and she has intrinsically tied this book club into this production company. She knows that she has thousands of followers on her book club, that she makes movies out of these books that these thousands upon hundreds of thousands of people read and buy. She knows that people are going to go see the movies and the TV shows. For example, Where the Crawdads Sing, Daisy Jones and the Six that just came out, The Last Thing He Told Me that just came out, Tiny Beautiful Things, which is a show with Catherine Hahn on Hulu that also just came out. She has the numbers. She knows for a fact that these people have read these books and like these stories and want to see them adapted. She knows that. She knows what a big audience she has in her back pocket, basically. So she uses this when she is pitching these shows to studios. She's like, I know for a fact that people are going to watch this. I have the data. So it would be smart for you to give me a deal and make this movie and stream it on your streaming service, because I know for a fact that you're going to get people who are going to watch it. And these studios are chomping at the bit to get her projects greenlit at their studios, because they know that people are going to come in droves to watch it and to see it. And it is so brilliant, in fact, that she actually just sold her company to an investment group for $900 million. That is so much money. That's nearly $1 billion that she sold this production company for, because that's how much it's worth. She has so many projects, so many deals that have been licensed that are in that pipeline. It's extremely brilliant. And she still has a very, prominent creative role at this company. She's still on the board of directors. She's very involved still, but she's just got major cash in her pocket now. She has done something that is just so smart and so brilliant. And I just truly applaud her, not just as a reader, not just as an actress or a producer, but just as a businesswoman in general. She is doing the damn thing, and it is amazing. So far, her projects have been very good and very successful. When it comes to being adaptations and the similarities to the book, I wouldn't necessarily say that a lot of these projects kind of keep with the same storyline or the same plot points. Case in point, Daisy Jones and the Six. This is the most recent TV show. Well, I guess not anymore because The Last Thing He Told Me and Tiny Beautiful Things have both been released. But before those, it's one of her more recent projects from Hello Sunshine that has been put out. If you listen to my episode on the Taylor Jenkins Reid universe, you would know that I did a review on the book Daisy Jones and the Six, and I absolutely loved it. It is currently my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book I have read thus far. It's absolutely incredible, heart-wrenching, heartwarming, beautiful, beautiful writing. I absolutely loved it. And I was so excited for this show because I thought that the casting was perfect. I'd heard that they got some pretty iconic musicians to rewrite the songs. I was so excited for that as well. And I'm just going to be honest. This show did not live up to the hype, in my opinion. I absolutely loved the show. I thought it was great. There was so much that pleasantly surprised me. But there was also a lot about this show that disappointed me. And I think a lot of the changes that were made don't really reflect the main themes and the main messages in this story and the main focus of this story. And I think it was kind of reduced down to some very basic tropes at the end of the day. And I'm going to start giving some specific examples. So if you are somebody who has not read this book or seen this show, I suggest that you click off if you want to consume this story yourself. Now, let's start off with the things that I really enjoyed about this show. Number one, the acting. Absolutely fantastic. I would say most of the actors in this show were perfectly cast, and they did an absolutely incredible job, knocked it out of the park. Riley Keough, amazing. Great Daisy Jones, was so pleased with her. She was incredible, and she was so heartbreaking as Daisy and really just encapsulated the spirit of her character perfectly. Sam Claflin, love him. He is the book adaptation king. Hello, Finnick Odair. Thank you very much. He was perfectly cast. He was absolutely amazing. I heard a couple people online say that he slipped in and out of his English accent. I didn't hear that at all. I thought he was fantastic. I thought he was great. The biggest surprise to me, though, was Camilla Morone. Is it Camilla Morone or Camilla Maroney? I'm not really sure. But she played Camilla Dunn. And she was incredible. She was probably the best actor in the show. She was amazing. I'd never seen her act in my life. She was so, so incredible. And her performance just broke my heart. I do wish that her character was written a little bit better, and we're going to get into that in a second, but her acting was so amazing. She was perfectly cast as Camilla, and I think she did such a fantastic job, and I wish she was in the show more, actually. Suki Waterhouse was also amazing as Karen. She really surprised me. She was amazing. The whole band overall was just cast really well. I was very pleased with the casting. Their chemistry together was amazing. They all took the time to learn their instruments and to learn how to play together as a band. Even though they're a fictional band, they played and practiced like a real band. It was really, really refreshing to see that kind of commitment, I guess, from the actors. Felt very authentic and very natural and very real. But honestly, that's about all I liked from this show. I know that sounds crazy. I'm sure there are people listening to this who really, really loved this show. And I will say, if I did not read the book before I saw the show, I think I would have loved the show because it was a good story. You know, if I wasn't familiar with the characters or how the book was written, I think I would have loved the show. You know, it had a functional storyline, complicated relationships, decent music, conflict. I think I would have enjoyed the show had I not read the masterpiece of the book that it was based on. And unfortunately, I think they just changed a little bit too much to where it became almost a completely different story in terms of the essence and the theme and the messaging around the entire story. Because there were a lot of things that they kept the same, that were very important to the character development and the relationship development rather than the story itself. A good example of this is something that Taylor Jenkins Reid actually talked about when she was being interviewed for Daisy Jones and the Six. She was like, I was really excited to see the scene where Daisy says to that guy, she says, I'm not the muse, I'm the somebody. And that scene in itself basically just shows you that Daisy is a go-getter. She's somebody who's confident in her art, she's confident in herself, and she knows that she's not going to take any shit from anybody. And just because she's a girl doesn't mean that she's not going to do great things. That's character development, and it's important. That scene's important to the development of the character. Is it important to the story? No, not really. When you finish that story and you close the book and you reflect on what it is that you just read, you're not thinking about moments like that. You're thinking about the plot points that drove the characters to make their next move. You're thinking about the mistakes that they made, what they learned, and what it taught you as a reader, as somebody consuming the story. You're not thinking about little moments like that. You're just not. And I think that all of these actors were so great. And I think that this is a problem that book adaptations have a lot. There's moments like that in the book that need to be explicitly said because you're not seeing certain things. You know, you're just reading words on a page and imagining it yourself. Sometimes things need to be explicitly said, like, I'm not the muse, I'm the somebody. But in the show, you're seeing these actors emote. So I don't think that that specific scene needed to be in there because I think Riley Keough could have shown that in just regular dialogue, regular subtext. I don't think that's something that we really needed to see. And I think moments like that and time like that could have been allocated to prioritizing moments in the book that were so monumental and so critical to the entire plot and to the relationship of the band and how it evolved. But there were a lot of these plot points in the show that were kind of also in the book, but not really. Like, they were changed. It's not that they were cut out. I would have rather them be cut out, but they weren't. They were changed drastically. Great example is Daisy and Billy's first kiss, okay? In the book, when this kiss happens, it is very genuine and it means something completely different than their first kiss in the show. I'm going to start by reading you the scene where they first kiss in the book. Mind you, I will be alternating between Daisy and Billy's lines because it is told in an interview style. So because I can't change my voice from a dude's voice to a girl's voice, I'm just going to say Daisy when she starts talking and Billy when he starts talking. Daisy. It was only about 11 in the morning, but I was buzzed already. Billy was playing a song on the keyboard and I sat next to him. He was showing me the notes. I was playing a few with him. We were trying to figure out the right key. The few lines Billy had written already, I remember them exactly. Nothing I wouldn't do to go back to the past and wait for you. He sang that sitting right next to me. Billy. Daisy put her hand on mine to stop me from playing. I looked at her and she said, I like writing with you. And I said, I like writing with you too. And then I said something I shouldn't have. Daisy. He said, I like a lot about you. Billy. Daisy smiled when I said that. She lit up. This wide smile and this girlish laugh, and I can see her eyes started to water. Just the tiniest bit. Or maybe I was imagining it. I don't know. It feels good to make Daisy smile. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Daisy. I like a lot about you. Billy. She was dangerous, and I knew that, but I don't think I could recognize the safer she felt to me, the more dangerous she was. Daisy. Before I even really knew what I was doing, I leaned in to kiss him. I was so close to him I could feel his breath, and when I opened my eyes, his were closed, and I thought, this makes sense. It made sense in this deeply gratifying way. Billy. I lost myself, I think. For a moment, at least. Daisy. My lips barely grazed his. I could feel them only in the sense that I was aware of having almost felt them. But then he pulled back. Billy looked at me, and his eyes were so kind when he said it. He said, I can't. My heart dropped in my chest. I don't mean that figuratively. I mean, I could actually feel it sinking in my chest. Billy, I shudder thinking about it, about that time, how I could have made one small mistake that would have thrown my whole life away. Now, if you have seen the show, their first kiss in the show is very, very different, and it has a completely different meaning, okay? In the show, she is singing this song that he wrote about her, right? Where he's basically saying she's more fun to miss than more fun to kiss or whatever. Or something that was like a snarky song, and he wrote it, and he was mad at her because she ditched a recording session because she was partying or whatever. So he was mad at her. And he's making her sing this song over and over again. He's like, you're not doing it right, Daisy. You don't have any passion. You're not feeling it or whatever. And she gets pissed and she storms out. He follows her and he says, why aren't you singing it right? And she says, I'll go back in there and I'll sing that if you tell me there's nothing going on between us, that everything that I'm feeling is in my head, and I'll go in there and I'll sing the song and we can all go home. And then he kisses her, like he pulls her in. Oh my God. He pulls her in and he starts passionately making out with her. Is that what I just read to you? Did I just read to you two people passionately making out? No. I read a scene where she goes in to kiss him. He has a weak moment and barely kisses her back, pulls back, and is honest with her and says that he can't do it. In the freaking show, he literally makes out with her, sticks his tongue down her throat, and just to get her to sing, by the way, and then acts like it never happened and that he doesn't have feelings for her. It is so beyond fucked up. I can't even begin to talk about it. It completely changes the dynamic of their relationship, because the thing about Billy and Daisy that I always got in the book is that they were honest with each other. That in that moment where she goes in to kiss him, they're both being completely honest about how they feel and about why they can't, like the circumstances. They're being completely honest with each other. And that is completely lost in the show. She keeps calling him a liar. He's a liar, whatever. He always acts like he doesn't really care about her, but that he's also in love with her at the same time, just to keep the band together. And it completely changes his character. It completely changes the dynamic between him and Daisy, and also him and Camilla, by the way. And that's the next thing that I want to talk about, is the moment at the end where Julia, who is the one who's actually been interviewing them the entire time and who's going to publish the story or make the documentary or whatever it is that she's chronicling, it's the moment where she reveals herself in the book as the person who is doing all of this. She reveals it because she's talking to Daisy, and Daisy and Camilla had a conversation the night before the band completely broke up. And Julia says, oh, I remember that night. In the book, the moment that Julia sees and reveals herself, it's Camilla and Billy talking. And I'm going to tell you why. This is such a significant shift that changes the entire moral of the story. Let's start with the scene in the show, okay? Julia sees Billy and Camilla talking. They're basically arguing because Camilla says, you love Daisy, you have been in love with her, and you don't care about me, I'm leaving you, whatever. And Billy is trying to fight for her, and he's saying, look, the only reason that I like her or had somewhat feelings for her is because she saw all sides of me, you know? And Camilla says, I've loved you since I was 18 years old. You don't think I see every side of you? And then Julia comes out and she's like, Mom, Dad. And then Julia, present day, goes, oh, I remember that moment. I actually remember that night. And she's talking to Billy, and Billy's saying, oh, you do? And she goes, yeah. Meanwhile, in the book, this conversation is not happening between Camilla and Billy. It's happening between Camilla and Daisy. And the conversation that they have is instrumental to the band breaking up. And I am going to read it to you now, and it is all Daisy. So I'm not going to do that thing where I say Daisy, Billy, Daisy, Camilla, whatever. I'm not going to do that. It's just all from Daisy's perspective. So here we go. Camilla came into the hallway and she was holding Julia. And she said, do you need help? I didn't understand why she was being so nice. I said yes, and she took my key and she let me into my room. And she walked in with me. She put Julia down on the bed. She told me to sit down and she brought me a glass of water. I said, "You can go, I'll be okay." And she said, "No, you won't." I remember feeling really relieved that she could see through me, that she wasn't going to leave. She sat down next to me and she didn't mince words. She knew exactly what was happening, exactly what she wanted to say. I was unnerved. I felt so out of control and Camilla was so in control. She said, "Daisy, he loves you. You know that he loves you. I know that he loves you. But he's not going to leave me. What I need you to know is that I'm not going to give up on him. I'm not going to let him leave me. I will see him through this, the way I've seen him through the rest. We are bigger than this. We are bigger than you." Julia got under the covers on one side of the bed and I looked at her. Camilla said to me, "I wish Billy didn't love anyone else. But do you know what I decided a long time ago? I decided I don't need perfect love and I don't need a perfect husband and I don't need perfect kids and a perfect life and all that. I want mine. I want my love, my husband, my kids, my life. I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect. I don't expect anything to be perfect. But things don't have to be perfect to be strong. So if you're waiting around hoping that something's going to crack, I have to tell you that it's not going to be me. And I can't let it be Billy, which means it's going to be you." Camilla got up and poured me another glass of water and she got me a tissue, which is when I realized I was sobbing. She said, "Daisy, I don't know you very well, but I know you have a great heart and you're a good person. I know my daughter wants to grow up and be you one day. So I don't want you to get hurt. I want good things for you. I want you to be happy. I really mean that. You probably think I don't, but I do." She said she just wanted to make one thing really clear. "I can't just sit here and watch you and Billy torture each other. I don't want that for the man I love. I don't want that for the father of my children. And I don't want it for you." I said, "I don't want it for me either." Camilla said, "Daisy, you need to leave this band." Julia was fast asleep by this point. Camilla said, "If I'm wrong and you're already in the process of moving on and you're willing to let him move on, then don't listen to me. You have no responsibility to me. But if I'm right, you'd be doing us all a favor if you left and got yourself clean and found a life away from him. You'd be doing it for yourself. And yes, you'd be doing him a service, but also you'd be helping me take care of my children." I was quiet for a while, trying to process what Camilla was saying. And then she said, "I think it's time for you to go. But whatever you decide to do, Daisy, just know I'm rooting for you. I want you to get clean. Take care of yourself. That's what I'm rooting for." I finally said, "Why do you care what happens to me?" She said, "I think almost everybody on this planet cares about you." I shook my head and I said, "They like me. They don't care about me." She said, "No, you got that wrong." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Do you want to know something I've never told Billy? A Hope Like You is my favorite song. Not my favorite Six song, but my favorite song, period. It reminds me of the first boy I ever loved. His name was Greg, and I knew from the moment I met him that he was never going to love me as much as I loved him. And I wanted him anyway. And just like I knew he would, he broke my heart in a million pieces. And when I first heard the lyrics to that song, you put me right back there. Right back in the middle of my first love, with all the heartbreak and the hope and the tenderness. You made it feel new and real all over again. You did that. You wrote a beautiful song about wanting something you know you'll never have and wanting to have it anyway. I care about you because when I see you, I see an incredible writer who suffers from the very thing that the man I love suffers from. The two of you think you're lost souls, but you're what everybody is looking for." I let it all sink in. I really listened to her. And then I said, "That song it's not about Billy, if that's what you were thinking. It's about wanting to have a family, kids, and knowing you'd be awful at it. Feeling like you're too much of a fuck up to deserve anything like that, but wanting it anyway. And I look at you and everything that you are, and I know it's everything I can never be." Camilla looked at me for a moment, and then she said something that changed my life. She said, "Don't count yourself out this early, Daisy. You're all sorts of things you don't even know yet." That really stuck with me. That who I was wasn't entirely determined, that there was still hope for me. that a woman like Camilla Dunn thought I was worth saving. Now, I know that was kind of a long passage, but didn't it just change your life? I mean, come on. When I read that, I was like blown away. Just as I read most of the passages in this book, I was literally blown away because the writing is so beautiful. It's so perfect. And the way that they communicate with each other is just so different to how they communicated in the show, especially Camilla and Daisy, because they go from being like really cordial and really nice and sweet to each other to Daisy being like, he's yours, Camilla, like I'll never have him, okay, I get it. And then Camilla's like, what, he's with me out of some sort of obligation or whatever. Like their conversation turned catty, and it completely changed the dynamic of their relationship. And it just makes me sad because that if by the way, Camilla Morone, who is incredible, like I said earlier, could you imagine if she had that monologue to do? That would have been life-changing. That would have been so good, and it makes me so sad that they didn't include that because she honestly would have killed that scene, and so would Riley Keough. I mean, they were both incredible as their characters in this show, and I think if they were given that kind of writing, it would have been that much better. And it really just feels like a missed opportunity. Another massive change that they made in this show is that Billy like completely and fully relapses. He starts doing coke, he starts drinking again, and on top of all of that, he starts making out with Daisy before and after the show and getting like super close to her uncomfortably during the show while they're performing, and Camilla sees the entire thing. Now, I have a few problems with this. The first being, it doesn't happen in the book. He doesn't go off the rails like that. He literally drinks a glass of tequila and he is having like a mental breakdown while he's doing it. And then he goes back up to his room and cries and snuggles with his wife and his daughter. The second issue that I have with this is that he reduces Daisy down to an addiction, basically. She's not a person. She is just something that he is forbidden from having, and he's finally giving in to all of his desires, and she's just one of them. It gave this very disingenuous feeling that he didn't really care about her ever. And in the book, he cares about her deeply, and that's why he's honest with her. That's why the entire book happens, is because he cares about her. It's not because he uses her for his own personal gain or when he feels like going off the rails a little bit. And that's what they reduced their relationship down to, what they reduced her down to in the show. And I just don't really think that makes a whole lot of sense considering everything that they go through. I also think this takes away from the essence of his character. If you'll remember in my episode that I did where I reviewed the book Daisy Jones and the Six, I read a passage where he says, I have no respect for people who waste other people's faith in them. You know, Camilla, basically saying Camilla has faith in me and I'm not going to let her down. And he lets her down in the show and then just begs for her forgiveness, and she just gives it to him, no questions asked. In the book, her kind of character would not do that. It just basically reduces their whole dynamic down to a love triangle that, you know, he loves Daisy, but he's with Camilla, but he actually really cares about Camilla, but you can't really tell because he's making googly eyes at Daisy and making out with her to get what he wants. You know, it just feels so disingenuous when all of this stuff that actually happens in the book that doesn't happen in the show deals with issues that are so much more complex than these petty little affairs that are going on, especially the affair between Camilla and Eddie. I'm sorry, that felt so forced. Their relationship did not even exist in the book. Even as a friendship, they didn't really have a relationship at all. So for them to just build up that storyline and then completely throw it away like nothing ever happened just creates a lot of flaws. And in the book, you are rooting for Billy and Camilla. You want them to make it, and you want them to have a successful marriage, and you want Daisy to be happy too. Everything that Camilla says, you're like, man, She is so right. This is the only way forward for everybody to thrive. And there are a lot of other things about the show that did bug me about this book. But like I said in my adaptations episode, it's all part of the lore of the story and how it's being told across different mediums. It still all goes back to the center, which is this book. So I'm choosing to believe that this book is the correct telling of this story, and the show is just an offshoot of it. Because there were a lot of things that disappointed me, but I can always go back to the book and read it and look at it and read passages like the ones I read to you, because they explore so many complex themes and complex messages, so much deeper than romance. I mean, I love a good romance movie or, some good relationship drama in my shows and books. I love that stuff. But this book was just so much deeper than that. And it was probably really hard to make this show, considering all of the work that they put into it. I'm excited to still watch whatever it is that Reese Witherspoon continues to put out with Hello Sunshine. It wasn't the worst show I've ever seen. I just felt like it didn't really accurately represent the book is all. So with that said, that is going to conclude today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for sticking around to this point. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Next week, I will be back with a new book review that I am very, very excited about. So I am excited to see you guys next week for that one. But yeah, have a great day, night, week, month, wherever it is that you are listening to this. And I will see you next time. Bye, guys.